Get the show on the road.
It's time to begin the midweek show. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is Ravings with Tana and Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's us.
That's who we be.
So yeah, this episode is a special response episode to one of our listeners on YouTube, Rihanna Draco.
And Rihanna or Raina? I don't know.
We aren't sure how to pronounce the first part of your name there, but this is out to you. We got your comment about doing more episodes about consumerism, so we're going to take that seriously. And I've also ordered the book White Noise, and it's on its way, so I will let you know what I think, and then Bill will read it after me, because that way we only need to buy one copy.
Hey, sheep. Why? Because consumerism is a disease.
Yeah. So yeah, we're going to talk about consumerism and how much people actually consume.
Well, the problem is, the way our society is structured with this, we have what's called planned obsolescence, and all products are designed to fail over a certain period of time, just to entice you to go buy the new model, the more fancy, shinier version. And that we end up with so much shit in landfills every year. I mean, so many hundreds of billions of tons of garbage.
Yeah.
It's quite ridiculous.
Well, think of how many electronics a lot of people buy. They may buy a desktop or a laptop, and then 2 or 3 years later have to buy another one.
Yeah, the last laptop I bought, I made it last me 7 years before the damn thing fell apart.
Yeah, I think I had mine about that long, 6 or 7 years, and it literally broke. It didn't work anymore, which is why I got a new one. And I've had that one now 3 or 4 years.
Well, one thing that could really help us out in the long run is really advocating companies taking a stance and making things that are going to last. Making computers that are easily upgradable. Same with cell phones. Cars, anything. If it's easily upgradable, you don't have to have constant production. We don't need quite as many resources as we're currently using.
Yeah.
We can work on fixing this place, and we can stop all this trash shit. I showed you a link once before on that, what do they call it, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Oh, God, that was horrifying.
It's like 3 times the size of Texas, just a ball of floating plastic shit that has run off from all over the world.
Yeah, and it just all collected together, and now is its own island.
It's becoming its own nation.
I mean, truly, I can't wait for someone to colonize it, because you probably could live there, and it wouldn't be much dirtier than living anywhere else.
No, really, our place is a disgusting mess with all the trash that floats around. Even in the cleanest of towns, you look around, there's garbage floating around in the streets, in the breeze.
Well, that's why a lot of cities have started banning those plastic shopping bags.
That's a good plan. That's anything to do with more petroleum needs to go away. And really, we do need a significant amount of plastics for the things we do, even if we're going to move on to like all electric cars and photovoltaic cells to take care of the electricity in our homes, we still need some forms of plastic to make those things. Once again, I advocate legalizing the growth of hemp because you can make not only plastic from it, but it's a biodegradable plastic that breaks down over time. It's not going to be permanent trash.
Well, yeah, think of how many bags a week go out of the average family home, just an average family of 4, and some families have more than one garbage bin because they produce so much garbage it can't all fit into one bin.
Yeah.
And that's just an astronomical amount of garbage that is from everything from foodstuffs to clothing that's stained and they don't want it anymore. And instead of donating items that someone else could use for another purpose, a lot of families just throw them away.
I've got neighbors where it's just a single person living in a house, and they produce twice the trash than my wife and I do.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I don't understand. How can you not think about that at all? You drive through places that are covered in blowing garbage on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You've got to understand that you're contributing to the problem.
Yeah, and I actually try to produce so little garbage because I co-op and share a garbage bin with another family. And so we've got 2 households of garbage that fit into one bin, and there's always room left over because both of our households recycle, and we try to keep the vegetable waste out of the garbage and compost with it. And just small things like using your coffee grounds to compost eliminates a pot's worth of coffee grounds every day going into landfill.
Well, yeah. I mean, it might only be a few tablespoons of waste matter, but at least it's going to be useful for something. And everything is. I mean, even if you've got food scraps, I mean, make some kind of compost outside with the food scraps. Just don't use meat.
I was going to say that.
But, I mean, you can use that to feed pets. I mean, a dog would love to chew on the bone. We've got a little dog in here right now, Mr. Judah.
Yeah, he's being quiet, though. That's why he's in here with us, because he wouldn't stop barking.
And he is not a terrible consumer and does not throw a bunch of shit in the garbage all the time. However, there are groups out there that are currently trying to change this attitude about throwing stuff away constantly. And one of them we've been looking into They're called the Freegans.
Yeah, freeganism.
Freegonomics.
Yeah, and what they've been doing is, and apparently this is a movement that has gone back to the 60s according to a couple of documentaries we watched, and they've been going to grocery stores and different public buildings where they throw a lot of foodstuffs away, and they will go after dark and collect it and then disperse it amongst themselves. And so they're saving a ton of money in food purchases, and also a good number of them are persons in need.
Well, yeah, I mean, whether it's going to people in need, or it doesn't even have to be somebody who's desperately in need. We just need to stop throwing away perfectly viable foods. One of my biggest issues when it comes to this is the fact that we're throwing away a lot of meats.
Yeah.
There are billions of animals being slaughtered every year for human consumption. And most of it, like a good half of the meat that's produced, is just being thrown in the garbage.
Yeah.
We're not even respecting the fact that something had to die to support us.
Yeah, one of the documentaries we watched said that the foodstuffs produced from farm to table, about 50% are thrown away. And that is an astronomical amount of food. And I know even households do the same thing. They will say, well, I had made the salad yesterday and the lettuce is a little bit wilty, so I'm just going to go ahead and toss this whole head of lettuce away. And you could have used that for something else if you'd eaten it that day, or given it to someone else who actually would eat it.
Well, I told you about that trick earlier. When you take that little butt end off of the lettuce,
yeah.
Even if the leaves are wilted, you can take that, float it in some water. It will begin to grow again. It'll sprout new roots. It'll become another head of lettuce, and it'll be just as good. Food is an amazing thing, especially fruits and vegetables. The way they grow, you can take almost any vegetable and regrow another one out of the one you bought in the store, unless it's a GMO product. Totally different story. And
we'll probably do a bunch of shows on that later.
Yeah, I think we need to wait until enough people know who we are that Monsanto can't make us disappear. But
because we do worry about that. If something happens to one or the other of us, remember the name Monsanto.
That's right. They did this to us.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. They're doing a lot much worse to you, and you don't even realize it because you're eating every bit of frankenfood that they throw out on the shelves. It's not labeled. The U.S. government isn't even trying to force it into being labeled. They're actually passing laws to protect Monsanto from the harm they're doing to the human species.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. And what did you tell me about Japan?
That Japan will not allow their citizens to consume our food products that are genetically modified for at least one generation of children. They're waiting for one generation of our children to grow up eating this their whole lives to see what it does first.
Yeah, have to see what kind of birth defects are going to pop out of it. It's a very sad state we live in. Be careful. Watch where your food comes from. But one of the biggest things, the reasons that we're throwing away so much, and the reasons there is so much food in the garbage, and we don't respect the fact that something had to give its life to feed us. As our society has grown, in the past 100, 110 years, we have become so far removed from any connection to anything natural. Most people don't even realize where food comes from. They just think it's something that shows up magically wrapped on a shelf in the supermarket.
Well, and I think some people have an idealized version of where food comes from. They think that there's these majestic farms where all these animals get to walk around and enjoy sunshine and fresh air and eat clovers out of the pasture, and that's really not the case for the majority of our food products.
I'm free, I'm happy. Hey, Bob, what's the bolt gun for?
Yeah, exactly. But there's been a number of recalls over the years of all different kinds of food products, not just meat products, but vegetable products as well, because they've been contaminated, because they've not been grown properly or handled properly from before, during growing time until harvest. And it's killed people. There's a number of people that have died, and a lot more that have become very sick from just eating something like alfalfa sprouts.
Yeah, E. coli is the worst of them. It really affects young people, and elderly people have compromised immunity deficiencies just because of their age group. They are not quite as developed as we are when you get to a certain age. Getting older, your immunities begin to fail you.
Yeah.
Obviously, our species is only designed to live about 50 or 60 years, so if you go beyond that, you're kind of shit out of luck.
Yeah, you just begin to develop all kinds of health issues that compromise your immunity.
E. coli, once upon a time, the only way you could get E. coli is if you were slaughtering cattle and the carcass with the meat fell into fecal matter.
Correct. And that's not the case now.
No, not anymore. We are doing so much mass farming. It's starting to show up in the fields where you've used different animals to fertilize.
Yes.
Not that the cow these factory-fed cows have anything worthwhile as far as fertilizer coming out of the end of them.
Right.
But, I mean, it shouldn't be used in the first place, but as soon as you find a problem with something like E. coli in your spinach or alfalfa sprouts or anything that you should be able to just eat raw.
Right.
Which you should be eating more raw fruits and vegetables. That's the way it grows. It's the way you're supposed to take it in. It's the way it's the most nutritious for the human body. We're just losing track of it all. I mean, we need to stop allowing other people to make our foods. That's why I advocate things like aquaponics and hydroponic food growth systems. We should be producing our own foods in our own homes.
Yeah, as much as possible. And a lot of people are not in a position where they're either not willing to at this time or they're not educated enough. But perhaps if we get the information out about why the food stuff's available to you at the stores, probably not the healthiest choice for you. Not because it's got all these weird chemicals in it, because it does, but because it's actually poisonous for a number of factors. And I watched a documentary a few years ago called Food Inc. And if you haven't seen that one, it's on Netflix, and it's a really good documentary. And they discussed the E. coli levels in the cows, and what they said caused it was cows eating corn. Cows were not meant to eat grains as such.
No.
And so it doesn't quite digest right. It upsets their stomachs, and so then their fecal matter has way higher levels of E. coli than it would have naturally if they had been eating grasses like they're supposed to. They're supposed to graze on grasses. Their teeth are not even designed to eat this corn.
Exactly. And you look back, like, I want to say maybe 10 years ago, there was a big campaign going on through the American Medical Association. They were trying to educate people on the overuse of antibiotics. You know, people who would come in and say, I've got a cold, I need antibiotics, and, you know, basically talk their doctor into giving it to them because they went to WebMD and misdiagnosed themselves and refused to take a professional's advice.
And just drink water and rest.
Exactly. And people were taking antibiotics for everything. But the problem is when you take too many of them, you start to gain... Your body no longer recognizes the antibiotic. It's no longer doing anything good for you. We knew this was a problem then, but now we're pumping so much of them into our cattle and all of our food stuff, livestock.
Yeah.
It's really destroying the way we are. It's going to make us very, very susceptible to bacterium that could eventually wipe out our species completely.
Yeah, and not only is the antibiotics they're injecting them left and right into the animal population, but it's also in almost everything that you buy. It's in a lot of laundry detergents now. It's in dish soap. And you're supposed to have a certain level of bacteria go into your body so that your body can fight things off naturally.
Right.
And when the more of these products that you use, the more then the bacteria mutates, and then even if you were dangerously ill and needed hospitalized, the antibiotics that they have available won't work anymore because the bacteria are resistant to it. And that's where things like MRSA come from.
Yeah, something completely incurable.
Yes. But going back to the freaking movement, a lot of people worry about germs and bacteria in the rubbish bins, and they think it's dirty to take food out of the rubbish bins.
You know, for the most part, I work in restaurants, and I have seen a lot of restaurants in my time. There's very rarely anything in the garbage that's not more disgusting than what you see inside of a restaurant kitchen.
Yeah, well, and I know I've worked in a restaurant as well, and I also once worked at a gas station. And at the gas station, we every day at around 11:30 had to throw all the donuts away because they would be bringing new ones, and we weren't allowed to give them away. We weren't allowed to even take them home ourselves, and we had to write them down. And it was on camera that you threw them away because they had cameras going all the way out to the garbage bin. And it's ridiculous that you know that there's entire groups of people that have nothing to eat locally in your town, but yet you cannot give them. These donuts are being thrown away. And obviously I hadn't done anything to them. They were perfectly fine. And I would package them in a nice garbage bag and make sure it was a see-through one and put it right on top so people could see it. So in case they happened by, that wasn't my fault if they happened by and took it, but we weren't allowed to give it away.
That's an awesome idea. That's one of the biggest problems when it comes to restaurants. I mean, the whole friggin' movement in finding decent foods that are a day past their sell-by date or whatever, that's not something bad. An expiration date on a food item is not something you really got to worry about. I don't worry about drinking my water when it's past its expiration date. Why the fuck does water expire?
Yeah, the Huffington Post the other day released an article about the expiration dates are more for litigation purposes than it actually has to do with whether the food is consumable or not. And many things are good for many months past the expiration date. But there was a few things they warned about, like lunch meat was one of the things that you really shouldn't eat after the expiration date because of how it's processed.
Don't touch the ham.
Yeah, it's really not good to eat that. after the expiration date, but cereals, they said, were good for at least 6 months after the expiration date. So if you bought some cornflakes of some kind and they expire, it's still good for 6 months. And once it gets chewy, you know it's not good anymore.
Any dry goods are fine. I don't see there being too much of a problem with it, as long as there's no insect population in there. But even if there is, fuck it, they've been eating what you're about to eat, and they're extra protein. I know that might sound gross to some of you, but guess what? Our species used to survive off eating insects. We weren't always hunters.
Yeah, it's true. And there's still a lot of cultures and communities that still eat insects for different reasons. And it's a perfectly viable and valuable protein source.
It is. And really, hey, I remember there was a great show about it, like an Armageddon type scenario, and showing people what they could and could not do to potentially survive. And one thing they brought up, people are starving everywhere. They're not looking at the ground. They don't realize there's protein everywhere.
Yeah.
Most insects have 7 times more protein per pound than beef.
Yeah, and no fat.
Exactly. If they're not swimming around in raw garbage, you're going to be okay eating an insect once in a while. You probably eat plenty of them while you're sleeping and don't even realize it.
And the government allows a certain amount of insects into any processed food item that you buy. So if you go and buy a box of some kind of cookies, chances are there's little buglets in there.
Oh, yeah. Even all the little snack cakes and stuff you can buy. The amount of insect parts and rat hairs that you're allowed per million.
Yeah.
It's kind of gross to think about.
It really is, but that it goes to show you that you're eating more things that you would consider garbage than what people who remove items from the
people eating out of a dumpster aren't eating as much garbage as the people going to the grocery store.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I had a coworker and I that had a scheme that we had planned to go and become freegans ourselves, and we worked it out several different times and made plans to go to different supermarkets, but we got scared every single time and it still had not gone. And we've been trying to do this for a good 2 years now because we're afraid of getting arrested. And that, sadly, that happens where you cannot have the food that is being literally thrown away.
Well, that's another issue, though, because a lot of these companies realize that people are doing this, and they're starting to put locks on their dumpsters.
Yes.
How sad is it when you walk up to a grocery store and you see somebody outside begging for change so they can buy food in front of a building that's full of food with locked dumpsters full of food out back?
Yeah, and a lot of the ones that don't put locks on are now pouring bleach and other cleaning solvents on top of the food so that it's not possible to eat it. And they're saying that they need to protect themselves in case someone gets sick from eating out of the dumpster. But I'm reasonably sure that someone eating a foodstuff that had bleach on it when they were unaware would be more likely to make someone sick than eating an apple that they picked off the top.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure most people who would eat out of their dumpsters don't have quite the money to put together a whole litigation against you.
Right.
You're going to be okay. Especially with your lawyers asking the first question, did you eat this out of the dumpster? Oh, well, then you don't have a case.
Yeah, it's not like it was sold to them, so they really wouldn't have a case, in my opinion.
I think, we need to get away from the whole grocery store thing anyway. The more and more I go to grocery stores, the more I realize there's a very small set amount of vegetables that are in there, and they don't really fill all of the nutritional needs of the human being anyway.
Right.
The stuff that costs you the most, what you really, the produce is expensive anyway, way overpriced.
Absolutely.
Because we have to ship it in from other countries. We can't even make our own food anymore.
Yeah, now I read somewhere that the majority of apples that we consume in our country are now foreign.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we have some of the best apple-growing groves in the world.
We are messing things up a lot. And a lot of it has to do with restrictions we're putting on farmers and the fact that if they're not following along with these GMO standards that we're now passing through the FDA, which is run by the former CEO of Monsanto. Lovely story there. The small farmer can't make profit anymore. You have to go through so much legal paperwork on a regular basis. It's almost a third full-time job apart from being the farmer and the harvester and the one trying to sell the produce.
Every single farmer that I know has another full-time job and usually another part-time job as well.
Yeah, I've worked with guys who work full-time landscaping, which is a pain in the ass. And then, they wake up like 4 o'clock in the morning first because they had to go out and tend to their fields.
Yeah.
And then they'd come out and work some shitty job for $12 an hour for 10 hours a day. And then go home and take care of feeding the animals and mucking out stables and whatnot. It's horrible.
It really is.
There was a couple of years back when Georgie Jr. was still in office. He was doing I don't even remember what the hell he was talking about. It was something where he's interacting.
Did he even know at the time?
Yeah, he probably knew less about it than I currently do. But there was a woman who said something about, she was talking about the economy, and she mentioned working 3 jobs, and he just kind of puts his arm around her. That's uniquely American, isn't it?
I do remember seeing
that. And I'm
like,
what the fuck is the matter with you, retard? Of course it's uniquely American. This is the only place in the world where somebody should have to hold 3 jobs just to get by.
Right.
But
it's disgusting.
We need to get away from that. We need to start utilizing local farmers.
Yeah, there's these amazing things that pop up all over called farmers markets.
Yeah.
And the produce is much cheaper than at the grocery store, and you're actually supporting people in your community that are trying to have a living, make a living in your own community, and they're growing food grown in your own community. And so it's not being shipped across the country. It's not bringing weird parasites in from across the country.
Yeah, not bringing us invasive species that are destroying all of our plant life, trees and whatnot, like this emerald ash borer that's destroying trees all over the Midwest. But not only that, I mean, when you have food that is locally grown, you are taking in local pollens and things that most people are allergic to. And when you take it in through the digestive tract, you tend to overcome your allergies. One of the best things you can do if you have allergies is to eat local honey.
Yeah, local honey is not the kind that you go and buy in the little plastic bear at the store that has the big corporate logo on it. That's not what we're talking about. The honey that actually is from bees that were in your neighborhood or your town is the kind that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it's even better if you can find it with a piece of the honeycomb still inside.
Yes.
Floating bee parts are
they're acceptable.
Those are a bonus. Who cares? It's just a little extra protein. Don't eat the stinger.
Yes.
But I mean, we need to support these people. When you look at like most of Europe, seeing how we're the fattest nation in the world and nothing to hold a candle to, most of Europe, they're much healthier because they go out on a daily basis and they pick up the food they're going to eat that day. They buy fresh stuff and they eat it immediately. They're not trying to hoard it like we do.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they only go to the grocery store once a week or every 2 weeks, and if they do buy fresh produce, it's not going to last that long.
No.
Or they try to make it last that long, and then that's when they start getting sick with weird things. You really should not keep a head of lettuce around for 3 or 4 weeks and think you can eat off of it. You can't.
No, and the fact that it survives that long should tell you there's something wrong with that lettuce.
Yeah, I had an apple. I had an apple in my lunch bag from work, and it fell out of my lunch bag. I didn't notice it, and it rolled behind a filing cabinet that I had. And no joke, at least 4 months had gone by since I had bought apples. And I found this apple, and it looked exactly the same as the day it was purchased.
But if you cut it open, it would be just as juicy as ever.
I know, and it wasn't squishy at all. It wasn't becoming wrinkled. I'm like, my God, now I'm afraid of apples.
Well, I need to put together a setup where I can grow a banana tree indoors.
Yes.
Because I want something to produce. I love bananas. They are great for potassium. They're really good for you after a workout of any sort. But I hate buying them in stores. I mean, the ones that have the nice yellow hue to the outside, they are green and completely not ripe inside.
Yes.
Because we pick them too early. And we use gases in a truck to try and turn them yellow so they look presentable for the store.
But it's not nutritional to eat things that have been gassed and things that are not ripened yet.
No. It's really quite disgusting.
And then they tell you to peel a lot of the produce because the outside of the peel is not safe because it may have been contaminated by whatever feces coming into contact with it. So they recommend peeling some things.
Sticking in the waxes.
Yeah, but that's where the nutrition lies in almost all produce is actually in the peel.
I can tell you one thing that's a lot better to do than peeling it. Take your sink and fill it about halfway with water. Add 2 cups of vinegar and just throw all your produce in it. Let it float. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. You're going to have some nasty looking shit down at the bottom of the sink.
Yeah.
But it's going to take all the wax off. It's going to remove all the dirt. And when it comes to things like strawberries that have a real tendency to mold, it cleans them out to a point where they will last for weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really good idea to go.
I'm going to do that. I'm also going to, I had some lettuce earlier that I was going to throw away
I'm going to regrow
it. Yeah, I'm going to regrow it. Whatever that little bit is called that you pull off, I don't know what that's called.
It's the stem. It's where it grows off of the plant.
So yeah, I'm gonna plant that in a dish of water and set it outside and see what happens. I'll let you guys know what happens.
Yeah, we could take some photos. Maybe we'll put them up on Facebook or something. That'll be a good idea.
That'll be fun.
But yeah, we should probably steer away from food. There are a lot of issues with food, and if we start eating more locally and paying attention to what we're eating, even producing the food for your family. I mean, if you have a garage, you can turn that garage into a year-round surplus of fresh fruits and vegetables, and even edible fish, which you should be eating good fish. Farm-raised isn't the best way to go, but it's still better than the cattle and things that you'd be eating from the grocery store. Yeah,
and some people might even be lucky enough to be able to have 2 hens to be able to provide their family with fresh eggs.
If you can make a small chicken enclosure that you can move around your yard, that's the best way to do it. Don't spray your yard. Don't fertilize it. Just let whatever grows grow, and you move every couple days. Move that chicken coop just a little bit farther, and let them eat whatever's there. They refertilize your lawn. New stuff grows. They're well fed. They're better for you. The eggs are going to be good.
And the eggs are much better for you than the ones that have been sprayed down with chemicals that now, that's why you have to cook eggs and can't eat raw cookie dough.
Actually, I heard a story from the comedian George Lopez once. He said, and this could be the case in a lot of places, if you want to have chickens, the local municipality won't allow you to. It's a violation of laws. His dad had chickens in Los Angeles, and they didn't want him to have them because you couldn't have livestock. So what his dad did was name them. Now they're not livestock, they're my pets.
There you go. And maybe that's what we have to resort to. But there is some issues with some ordinances in some places, and that's something that we need to rectify. There used to be places that had ordinances against having a clothesline. And now they're like, well, it was an eyesore, but now we're realizing, well, hey, if we could save a little bit of fossil fuel, maybe we should dry our underpants outside.
Yeah, no kidding. And really, if there's anybody out there who would have a tendency to steal someone else's underpants, for one, gross.
Yeah.
Number two, it's just a piece of cloth. It doesn't matter what it looks like. And if it's hanging outside, it's already been washed. It's not going to do you and your sicko fantasies any good.
Yeah, I have a clothesline. I put my panties out there.
That's the way to go. I would totally do it if I owned enough clothes to let them hang out there and dry.
Yeah.
I'm a minimalist, though. I don't buy new stuff ever.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing is people consume way too much. People buy, some people have 30 or 40 pairs of shoes. How could you possibly wear 30 or 40 pairs of shoes?
Exactly. There's something wrong with you if you think you can wear that many.
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of people get on you about fashion. Oh, you've got to have this color for this type of thing. You've got to have this type of heel. Oh, you can't wear skinny heels during a thick heel year. Bullshit. Quit listening to those assholes.
Oh, Lord.
Really, fashion is nothing but an ever-changing way to keep you buying useless garbage to impress people you don't like anyway.
Yes.
And you're spending more money than you can afford to do so.
Yeah, a lot of people are maxed out on credit cards.
Oh, God, our credit card debt is just getting horrible in this country. I recommend everybody who has more than $1,000 for the credit card debt either pay it off, and if you're way over $1,000, file bankruptcy and never get another credit card.
Yeah.
You don't need it. If you need to get something that bad, save up some money and go buy it.
And people always say, well, what about for emergencies? But how much of the money debt that you have on your credit card was actually for an emergency?
Yeah. How many things are you buying on a regular basis that you think you need at the moment of purchase, but then you never use?
Yeah, I've done it.
Yeah. Just put the money you would have spent on that garbage aside. Now you've got an emergency fund.
Exactly. But yeah, so be a little more responsible with some of the choices that you're making and try to buy local when you can. And there's a lot more locally available than you could possibly realize.
Pay attention to what you do with the things you have. Try and make everything last as long as possible so you're not adding to the garbage problem.
Right, and donate things to organizations that give them away to other people. There's also websites like Craigslist where you can list things for free.
The Curb Alert, I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That is a great thing to do. If you have any furniture or boxes of clothes or anything, don't give it to somebody who's going to sell it cheaply. Give it to somebody who needs it. Yeah,
there was a Curb Alert in our local Craigslist today for windows for someone to use to build a greenhouse. And
that would be awesome.
Yeah, I would have swooped in and bought them. They're free. I would have swooped in and grabbed them, except I had to come and pay.
I'll buy you some free stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to buy you lots of free stuff.
No, that would be great. I would love to build my own greenhouse. I just need the space to do it.
Yeah, understood. But you do with what you can with what you have.
That's right. And never let anybody tell you don't have enough.
Absolutely. So we're going to sign off, I think, for this episode.
And Raina, how did you say your name?
Rihanna,
thank you for saying something. Give us another question in the future. Maybe we'll try and talk about that.
And I will let you know when the book comes in, White Noise, and I will let you know my views on it, and then we'll pass it to Bill and see what he says.
Someday I'll learn how to read, and I might even tell you what's in that book.
I'll read it out loud on audio tape for him.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, you have a good rest of your day and rest of your week.
See you, folks.
Bye.